You've moved from the newsroom space where you were once here to the corporate space to now politics.
Yes.
Why the shift?
No, if you look at my final column for Business Day, one of the things that I got to realize, because my editorship there was during the state capture years, like at the height of state capture. And I would have many confidential conversations with government officials and some politicians, many of whom ended up at the Zondo Commission as witnesses about what was really going on. And I realized the country is in big trouble. We can't just write about the things that are going wrong. We've got to do something about it. So that was the first thing. The second thing is some things clarified in my mind. And so I spoke about my community again, that the pattern always is in black communities that in order to make a living, you need to leave your family. You must just always leave your family. And your kids don't have a father, even though the father is alive, because the father must go and work in Johannesburg or Cape Town or look for work. The mother must go and work somewhere else. The kids must be raised by someone else. It affects education outcomes. It's got social implications. It affects whether they're going to get into the economy or not. So the thing that drives me now is just creating a politics that cares about community and family, which is why in our manifesto those things are central.
You've had almost a year
Yeah.
to listen to discussions, to go into the field, to understand what people are complaining about. From the research that you've done and the number of people that you've spoken to, what has echoed on the streets to be the main pressing issue that people of our country are facing and the youth is facing?
So I'll just mention just two things quickly. The first one is that people don't trust politicians and political parties.
True.
The first thing they say to you, I don't want to talk to you, right? That's a problem because it means people can't participate in the democracy meaningfully and be able to, to create the change that they want to see. It's a big problem. We encounter the same problem as well. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, I would say is safety. People feel very unsafe. And unsafe in many ways, right? They're feeling insecure, let me say it like that. Insecure and unsafe. It's either the fear of violence or the fear of hunger. These two fears are the two biggest fears that South Africans have.
How are you speaking to the youth to educate them about politics so that they know what's going on? It's because it seems as though people have grown out of it. They don't care what's happening. How are you going to educate the youth to say, you know about this? This is what a manifesto is. This is what political parties do. How are you educating the youth?
So, I wouldn't say we're educating the youth in that way. Here's why. We place young people at the center of what we do. So we don't have leagues at Rise Mzansi. So in the equivalent of our national executive, the youngest person is 21, right? There are three more people in their 20s within that structure. The rest are in their 30s. I am the third oldest person, and I'm 48 in our national leadership collective. The reason we do that is we want to cultivate a culture where young people believe they can lead themselves. It is actually in the role modeling that you get young people to be interested in leading, and in order to lead, you must participate. All our three premier candidates are in their 30s. And we're doing that deliberately to show that young people are not just another lobby group somewhere. Young people must be here and lead.
You're a new kid in the block.
Yes.
With no experience. Many will be hesitant to mark their X on your name.
Yes.
How do you, in a way, promise to be a good leader, but also where do you even start to address these issues, youth, so that you are held accountable to the issues that they currently face?
Look, I think the number one thing, like I said, is because the proposition in South Africa is that the political parties of old people must address the issues of the youth. First thing we're saying, no. The youth lead and address their issues.
Yes.
Number one. Right? Which is why our premier candidates are the people that you see. When our candidate list comes up, you'll see there's a few people over 50, the rest 40, 30, 20. Right? We're doing that deliberately. That's the number one thing. The second thing, we talk about leadership, the importance of the quality of leadership, right? And the young people that we have as our premiership candidates have impressive track records in business, in civil society, and in community activism. We are showing that when young people from diverse experiences and backgrounds come together, magic happens, right? And it's in the believing. And finally, we've gone for very simple, rational solutions that target the problem rather than targeting an abstract policy. And people find those relatable and they come to Rise Mzansi and support us.
Should you win the elections and you come into this space, many of us that are looking at where our country is right now, we're feeling it's failing. We're feeling our country is literally going down to the wolves because we are so infested with so much debt.
Yeah.
You coming in, how are you going to deal with those issues? How are you going to cover those debts? Aren't you going to put us in more debt? Aren't you going to let us say, again, another political party has entered, we are worse? Then it goes back to us saying, it was better during the times, Zakazuma. It was better during those times.
Yeah.
So how are you going to come in and not make sure we are not in that space or we don't feel hopeless in a way?
So the first thing that we say is that we're likely to have coalitions after this election. So number one, we are willing to work together with other political parties. The deal is simple. All of us bring our top 5 to the table, and we make sure that 3.5 to 4 of those issues among all the political parties that are talking about forming a coalition are addressed. If you do that, the interests of the voters are then addressed, of the majority of voters are addressed. I think that's important. The second thing that we say is that Parliament is actually really important. It's not just about being in government. Even if we don't win the election, we want the people to see us on TV and hear us on radio, fighting for the things that they're fighting for outside Parliament, being said inside Parliament. Because MPs are representatives, not just about government. But finally, I think there is a way in which we can address our issues if we choose where to invest our money. We believe our money as a country should be invested in making sure that everyone has food on the table, invested in fighting crime, investing in mostly black-owned and woman-owned businesses, 100%, in training for those entrepreneurs and support and access to finance, and training opportunities for young people. And fighting corruption, because the money is there, it gets stolen and wasted.
You speak about all these things. Do you have a track record showing, we've done this, we've done that? I'm not saying you are supposed to have it all figured out, but have you started somewhere? Because the youth will ask, have you started somewhere in addressing the issue of unemployment? Have you started somewhere in addressing the issue of crime? Where have you started, and where is the proof that this is what you've done?
So I want to be very clear about this. The reason people ask that questions is because we have misrepresented the democracy. It is not the function of political parties in a democracy to substitute the role of government, to do the things that the government is failing to do. And we learned that lesson, in a good way, by the way, in 1994. The ANC had never governed before, and it won a majority, right? Unemployment moved from 32% in 2000 to 21% in 2007. If we use that logic where we said, where did the ANC create jobs before, we would have never voted for the ANC. The important thing is the quality of the ideas that you have and the quality of the leaders that you have.
We've seen a mess in coalitions, especially within our locals. The possibility of making it to the nationals is also given. How do you bring about these talks in coalition, but also not compromising Rise Mzansi's values?
So I think that the values are important, but there is something that I want to sort of explain, and that is in countries where you always have a coalition government, like Belgium, Holland, etc., your ideological similarities are less important. What is more important is whether the other party or parties that you're getting into a coalition with respect your political objectives to try and accommodate them, right? But there are certain non-negotiables. For example, we're not going to go into a coalition government with any party that wants to protect corrupt people. One. Two, any party that does not want to invest in young people, you can't go. You know what I mean? So you could share the same values in a way, but maybe young people must be like at the back, right? If you don't support the reconstruction of black communities and families, then maybe we don't have a deal. The reason we want service delivery at community level is so that parents can work close from their home and look after their children and help them with homework, which in black communities they're not able to do right now because I'm not going to work hundreds of kilometers away. So you place those things on the table. Whichever party wants to accommodate those issues, even if it's not all of them, then you've got a deal.
We're bringing it back to the youth, Abantubam.
Yes.
Many of my peers,
Yes.
my friends, people that I've grew up with, are
Yeah.
currently at home.
Yes.
Some of them are even pregnant without jobs. They've graduated, they're still at home.
Yes.
An issue of unemployment is huge in our country.
Yes.
We've gone to the field, people are saying, "Nyovotelani."
Yes.
They don't even care. There's no jobs.
Yes.
They're going to come and say, we're going to create 20 million jobs or whatever jobs, but no one is saying exactly where
How?
these jobs were going to
Yes.
happen.
Yeah.
How am I going to put in an application? And,
Yes.
and sorry to say this, but that's what ANC has been doing. They've shown,
Yes.
they've literally put it out there. How are you...
Until the election and then they take them away.
True. That's the issue now. Huti, how are you saying this is what we have and also maintaining that thing?
Right.
Reassure the youth, Huti, this is what we have.
So the majority of people that are unemployed, especially the young ones, either just have matric and no other training, or they don't have matric at all. So the specific thing that we've proposed is that we train about 1 million young people within 5 years, about 200,000 young people a year into additional skills training programs. Because evidence shows that when you have a skill, even if it's doing hair, you are more likely to get a job than somebody who's just looking for a piece job, any job, right? So that is the first thing that we need to solve. The second thing that we're saying should be done is what we call a job seekers grant. If you have now received the training, you get a monthly stipend for 6 months so that you can buy airtime, you can photocopy your CV, you can scan it, you can go and look for work and so on. It just helps you over the next 6 months to be able to look for and find a job with the certificate that you have. The third thing that we're saying is that at a local level, you need to fix local service delivery. You can't even do Espaza properly, where there are no services, no electricity, no water, and that sort of thing.
Several corruption scandals, criminality has overruled our country.
Yes.
We believe politicians need to hold themselves accountable. How do you ensure that you hold yourself accountable in any situation and ensure that you are transparent to the people of the country?
So politicians will never hold themselves accountable. South Africans need to understand this. The people need to hold politicians accountable. So what have we proposed? We've proposed 3 things. 1, we must change the electoral system. You can't have people sitting in parliament, but you don't know which one of them is representing your area. Because you must be able to go to that person and ask them, hey, Wena, why did you vote for Nkani? We saw you voted there. Why did you do it? Right? So we must change the electoral system so that you can know who represents you in parliament is voting the wrong way and supporting wrong things. That's number 1. Number 2, we are saying government information must be disclosed. So that is the second thing. And the last thing is, I believe, always start prosecuting corruption with the senior people. Always start with the senior people. Make it look so painful and bad for the little guys that they go, hey, if that minister is sitting in prison, they will think nothing of putting me in prison. Yeah. Yes, and by the way, that means we must change the rules. So that is why we've got political reform as one of our proposals. You must change the rules to force politicians to accept the oversight of the people.
And there you have it, Uhuru, the conversations where we break down political leaders and understand their manifestos and the people that they are beyond their political parties. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.